Linda Ronstadt is often remembered as one of the most powerful and beautiful voices in music history. Her voice sounded effortless, natural, and emotionally deep, as if singing came to her as easily as breathing. But behind that smooth sound was a person driven by intense focus and extremely high standards. Long before she became a global star, Linda Ronstadt was a young girl growing up in Tucson, Arizona, surrounded by music from many cultures. Her family exposed her to Mexican folk songs, country music, and early rock and roll, and those sounds shaped her musical ear at an early age. Even then, Linda was not satisfied with simply sounding good. She wanted to understand music deeply and perform it the right way. When she moved to Los Angeles in the 1960s to chase a music career, she entered a world full of talented artists, many of whom were relaxed and experimental in their approach. Linda was different. She worked harder, practiced longer, and demanded more from herself than most people around her. This drive helped her rise quickly, especially after joining the Stone Ponies and scoring a hit that introduced her voice to the nation. Yet as her fame grew, so did her reputation for being demanding. Some musicians admired her discipline, while others found it difficult to work under her constant pressure. Linda was not interested in casual performances or loose sessions. She wanted every note to be clean, every harmony to be perfect, and every performance to meet her vision. For some rock musicians, especially those used to spontaneous jam sessions and relaxed studio environments, this attitude felt uncomfortable. They were not used to being stopped again and again for small mistakes. Linda's seriousness made rehearsals longer and recording sessions more intense. While she was rarely cruel on purpose, her frustration showed when things did not sound right. Over time, whispers began to spread in music circles. People said Linda Ronstadt was hard to please. They said working with her could feel stressful. Some rock musicians quietly chose not to work with her again, not because they disliked her as a person, but because the environment around her felt heavy. To them, music was about freedom and expression. To Linda, music was about excellence and responsibility. This difference in mindset created early tensions that would follow her throughout her career. Even as her albums sold millions and her concerts sold out, there was always a feeling that standing next to Linda Ronstadt meant being held to the highest possible standard. For some, that challenge was exciting. For others, it was exhausting. This was the beginning of the divide that made certain rock stars uncomfortable around her, and in some cases, unwilling to continue working with her. As Linda Ronstadt's career reached new heights in the 1970s, she began working with some of the most respected musicians of her time. One of the most famous collaborations was with Emmylou Harris, a singer admired for her calm personality and emotional depth, on stage and on record. Their voices blended beautifully, creating harmonies that fans still consider legendary. From the outside, their partnership looked perfect, but inside the studio, things were not always easy. Linda expected absolute focus during recording sessions. She wanted harmonies to be exact, timing to be flawless, and emotions to be controlled. Emmylou Harris, who preferred a more natural and gentle approach, sometimes felt the pressure. While there was mutual respect, there was also tension caused by different working styles. Linda's perfectionism could make sessions feel intense, even when no harsh words were spoken. This pattern repeated itself with band members and session musicians. Some players remembered moments of encouragement and kindness from Linda, while others recalled nights that stretched on endlessly as she asked for one more take, and then another. Rock musicians who were used to recording quickly and moving on often felt trapped in these long sessions. They began to feel that mistakes were not allowed, even small ones. On tour, the pressure continued. Linda Ronstadt expected her live performances to sound as polished as her records. Rehearsals were serious, and mistakes were pointed out immediately. Some band members later said they felt nervous before going on stage, unsure whether Linda would be pleased or disappointed that night. This uncertainty created emotional distance. A few rock musicians quietly left her touring band, choosing projects where the atmosphere felt lighter. It is important to note that very few people openly criticized Linda Ronstadt in public. Many understood that her demands came from her commitment to the music, not from ego. Still, behind closed doors, some musicians admitted they struggled with her intensity. Sound engineers spoke about feeling anxious while adjusting equipment, knowing that even a small imbalance could upset her. Guitarists remembered moments where encouragement quickly turned into frustration if a solo did not land perfectly. These stories do not paint Linda as a villain, but they do explain why not everyone enjoyed working with her. Rock music often celebrates rebellion and looseness, while Linda's style required discipline and control. That clash made collaboration difficult for some artists. Over time, her reputation became well known in the industry. Musicians knew that working with Linda Ronstadt meant pushing themselves to their limits. Some welcomed the challenge. Others politely declined future offers. These quiet decisions, rather than loud arguments, are the real reason why certain rock stars drifted away from her circle. They respected her talent, but they did not enjoy the pressure that came with it. Beyond the studio and the stage, Linda Ronstadt's personal life also reflected the same intensity that defined her work. Her romantic relationships were often passionate but short-lived, marked by strong emotions and high expectations. She was drawn to artists and actors who matched her creative energy, but those relationships sometimes struggled under the same pressure she brought to her music. Friends and partners described her as deeply caring, but also sensitive and easily hurt. When things went wrong, she felt them strongly. This emotional depth fed her music, but it also made conflict more painful. In quiet moments after concerts or recording sessions, Linda sometimes showed a softer side. Band members recalled occasions when she apologized for pushing too hard or admitted that fear of failure drove her behavior. These moments revealed the truth behind her reputation. Linda Ronstadt was not trying to control others. She was trying to live up to her own impossible standards. As time passed, many musicians who once felt overwhelmed began to look back with understanding. They recognized that the tension they experienced was part of what made her music special. The same pressure that made collaboration difficult also produced performances that still move listeners decades later. Linda's legacy is not one of cruelty or ego, but of dedication taken to an extreme. While some rock stars chose not to stay in her orbit, they rarely questioned her talent or her heart. They simply chose different paths that suited their personalities better. In the end, Linda Ronstadt's story reminds us that greatness often comes with a cost. Not every artist can walk the same road, even when they admire each other. Her career shows that conflict does not always come from dislike, but from differences in values and working styles. Today, Linda Ronstadt is remembered as a voice that defined an era. The tensions, the pressure, and the strained relationships are part of that story, but they do not erase the beauty she created. Instead, they help us understand the full picture of an artist who gave everything to her craft. Some rock stars stepped away because the journey was too demanding. Others stayed and grew stronger because of it. Both choices are valid. What remains is the music, powerful and timeless, shaped by a woman who refused to settle for anything less than her best. Linda Ronstadt rose to fame in a music world that was loud, competitive, and dominated by strong male personalities. From the very beginning of her career, in the late 1960s and early 1970s, she stood out, not just because of her powerful voice, but because of her confidence and refusal to be pushed aside. While millions of fans admired her talent, not everyone in the rock music world felt comfortable around her success. As Linda's albums climbed the charts and her face appeared on magazine covers, resentment quietly grew behind the scenes. Some rock stars admired her privately, but struggled to work with her professionally. Others openly disliked her, seeing her as too demanding, too serious, or simply too strong-willed for an industry used to women staying quiet. According to people who worked in studios at the time, Linda knew exactly what she wanted from her music. She demanded extra takes, challenged arrangements, and refused to accept work she felt was not good enough. For artists who were used to getting their way, this caused tension almost immediately. One of the earliest signs of conflict came during recording sessions in Los Angeles, where studio time was expensive and tightly scheduled. Insiders later claimed that arguments broke out when Linda refused to rush her vocals to make room for other artists. In one incident, a male musician reportedly lost his temper and shouted at her outside the studio, accusing her of being difficult and selfish. Linda, instead of backing down, stayed inside and finished the session alone. Stories like this spread quickly through the industry. Some rock stars began whispering that Linda was hard to work with, even though others quietly admitted that her standards were simply higher than most. The label "difficult" followed her everywhere, and for many male musicians, that label quickly turned into dislike. As Linda continued to grow more successful, creative clashes became more common. During collaborations, she often suggested changes to harmonies, song structures, or vocal blending. While some artists appreciated her musical ear, others took it as an insult. One well-known rock innovator allegedly dismissed her ideas during a recording session, saying they sounded old-fashioned. Linda reportedly pushed back, defending her choices with confidence. The session became tense, and although the final recording pleased fans, the working relationship never fully recovered. From that point on, rumors circulated that certain rock stars refused to collaborate with her again. Whether these stories were exaggerated or not, they helped build the image of Linda Ronstadt as someone who did not care if others liked her, as long as the music was right. Finally, her growing reputation extended beyond the studio into live performances. Linda was known for demanding perfect sound, proper lighting, and well-organized rehearsals. To her, these were basic requirements for giving fans the best possible show. To some rock stars, however, these demands felt excessive. Musicians who preferred loose, last-minute performances felt frustrated by her careful planning. There were stories of rehearsals being canceled when things were not ready, and of tense phone calls late at night asking for changes before television appearances. Critics used these stories to paint Linda as cold and controlling. The phrase "rock diva" appeared more often in articles, even though male artists with similar demands were rarely criticized in the same way. Despite the tension, Linda's career continued to soar. Albums sold millions, concerts sold out, and awards piled up. This success only made resentment stronger among certain rock stars who felt overshadowed by her popularity. In an industry where ego mattered almost as much as talent, Linda Ronstadt's success was impossible to ignore. For some, admiration quietly turned into jealousy. For others, jealousy became open dislike. Yet Linda remained focused on her work, seemingly unaffected by who approved of her and who did not. What many failed to understand was that her strength came not from arrogance, but from deep personal pressure that few people saw. Behind Linda Ronstadt's confident stage presence was a private life filled with stress, responsibility, and emotional pain. While the public focused on her supposed feuds with rock stars, Linda was dealing with family struggles that deeply shaped her personality. Growing up, she was raised by parents who valued discipline, hard work, and high standards. These values became part of Linda's identity and later influenced how she worked in the music industry. Her father, a strict and demanding man, taught her that excellence was not optional. Her mother, quiet and reserved, expressed disappointment more through silence than words. Linda carried these lessons into adulthood, pushing herself harder than most artists ever would. Family struggles added another layer of pressure. One of Linda's siblings battled addiction for years, causing constant worry and guilt. Despite her fame, Linda often felt helpless watching someone she loved suffer. She quietly paid for legal help, medical care, and travel, doing everything she could to help without drawing attention. At the same time, another sibling struggled with depression, feeling lost under the shadow of Linda's success. Family gatherings became tense and emotional, filled with arguments, tears, and long silences. Linda often retreated to her room, rehearsing songs late into the night, using music as an escape from pain she could not fix. These personal burdens affected how Linda behaved professionally. She became more guarded, more focused, and less patient with chaos. To outsiders, this looked like arrogance. To those who truly knew her, it was survival. When rock stars complained about her strict standards, they rarely considered what she carried emotionally. Linda was not chasing perfection for praise. She was using work to stay in control, while her personal world felt unstable. Unfortunately, this emotional distance made it harder for others to connect with her on a personal level. Many musicians mistook her silence for coldness and her confidence for superiority. Public incidents only added fuel to the fire. During a late-night television appearance, a casual joke about her personal life crossed an invisible line. Linda paused, visibly upset, and walked off the set mid-interview. The moment became headline news. Critics called her temperamental. Fans were divided. Very few asked why the comment hurt her so deeply. From that moment on, every strong reaction she had was used as proof that she was difficult. Rock stars who already disliked her felt validated, while others quietly avoided working with her to escape controversy. Industry rumors grew louder. Some claimed Linda refused to speak to certain musicians. Others said she held grudges for years. There were whispers of backstage arguments, icy silences, and broken partnerships. Whether true or exaggerated, these stories shaped her image. In reality, Linda simply refused to fake friendliness for the sake of peace. She believed honesty mattered more than popularity. If a working relationship felt disrespectful or unproductive, she walked away, no matter how famous the other person was. In a world built on connections and favors, this attitude cost her friendships, but it preserved her self-respect. Despite the tension, Linda continued to reinvent herself musically. She moved from rock to country, from folk to traditional pop, and later to Spanish-language music. Each shift confused critics and irritated purists who wanted her to stay in one lane. Some rock stars saw these changes as betrayal, accusing her of abandoning rock roots. Linda ignored them. She followed her curiosity, not approval. With every genre she explored, she proved that her talent was deeper than trends. Grammy wins followed. Sales increased. The same artists who criticized her privately benefited from an industry she helped expand. What many disliked about Linda Ronstadt was exactly what made her special. She did not play the role expected of her. She did not soften her opinions to protect egos. She did not pretend that success erased pain. To rock stars used to admiration without resistance, Linda's strength felt threatening. But beneath the armor was a woman carrying heavy emotional weight, using discipline and music to hold herself together. The dislike she faced was not just about music. It was about power, independence, and a woman who refused to apologize for either. As the years passed, the conflict surrounding Linda Ronstadt slowly became part of her legend. Some rock stars softened their views with time, while others held on to old grudges. Yet history began to tell a different story, one where Linda's so-called difficult nature was actually a sign of integrity. Younger musicians, especially women, started to see her not as a diva, but as a pioneer who showed that talent did not require silence or submission. The industry that once criticized her slowly changed, adopting many of the standards she had fought for decades earlier. Clear contracts, creative control, and respect in the studio became more common, proving that Linda's demands were not unreasonable. They were ahead of their time. By the late 1980s and early 1990s, Linda reached a level of success that few artists ever achieve. Her albums crossed genres effortlessly, and her collaborations showed a depth of musical understanding that critics could no longer deny. When she joined forces with other legendary female artists for a trio project, the result was both commercially successful and critically praised. Ironically, some of the same people who once dismissed her now praised her professionalism and discipline. The rock stars who disliked her grew quieter as her legacy grew louder. Linda's decision to step away from the spotlight later in life added another layer to her story. Health challenges forced her to stop performing, a loss deeply felt by fans around the world. In interviews, she spoke openly about the sadness of losing her voice, but also about acceptance. Looking back, it became clear that her strength had always come from within, not from applause. The conflicts, the dislike, and the criticism had shaped her, but they had not broken her. Instead, they sharpened her sense of self. Today, when people revisit stories of rock stars who didn't like Linda Ronstadt, the narrative feels incomplete without context. Many of those conflicts were not about personality alone. They were about control, gender expectations, and an industry uncomfortable with change.